Well, good morning, everyone. This is Steve Dahlia. Happy Saturday morning to everyone. I've got 11 o'clock straight up, so out of respect for those of you that made it here on time, I'm going to go ahead and start because we've got a lot of information to cover and I want to make sure we get to it so that we leave time at the end for any questions that you might have. This is Steve Dahlia. I'm the National Education Manager for the Company Corporation. And for about the next 30-40 minutes, we're going to be presenting our educational class entitled Incorporation 101, Why Real Estate Agents Should Consider Incorporating or Forming an LLC. The first thing I want to do as we go through today's presentation is I want to just tell you a little bit about the company corporation. Then we're going to jump right into the meat of the presentation. We're going to talk about what does forming a legal entity mean. More specifically, what does it mean for you as a real estate professional? And then we're going to talk about how the process works. We're going to talk about the types of entities that you can choose, the filing fees with the state. We're going to talk about pricing. And if you stick around till the end, I've got a little surprise discount that I'm going to give you just for attending today's event. So let's go ahead and let's jump right into it. First, I want to tell you that the company corporation, we are the small business division of Corporation Service Company. And we've been helping companies with their business compliance for the past 100 years. We were founded by two attorneys in Delaware in 1899. And if you've heard of the Delaware corporate laws, our founders were instrumental in creating those Delaware corporate laws. So they saw a wave of regulations impacting would-be business owners. So they set out to influence how it was done and then created the company corporation, which is a business service company to help people wade through all of those factors. So we've been doing a lot of incorporations. Over the past 5 years, we've done more than 250,000 new LLCs and corporations, and we've done over 50,000 just last year alone. So that makes us now the largest, and of course we are the oldest provider in the U.S. So as big as we are in this space, you probably never heard of us, right? I know I sure didn't before I started working here. But our parent company services over 90% of the Fortune 500 companies. So some of our clients are companies like General Electric, Best Buy, Microsoft, and these are companies that come to us when they want to open up an operation in a new state, whether it be a warehouse or a store, or if they want to do a dissolution, whatever it is, they come to us. So even though you may not have heard of the company corporation or corporation service company, we've got a laundry list of clients that reads like a who's who of American business, and we provide a lot of services for them. One of which is a registered agent service, which I'll talk about later in the presentation. We are still headquartered in Delaware, in Wilmington, Delaware specifically. We've got physical brick and mortar locations in all 50 states and Washington, D.C., and typically we're within a 5-mile radius of the Secretary of State's office, which is usually in the Capitol, so that we can expedite filings for our clients. And we're an A-plus rated with the Better Business Bureau, and we've been featured in a lot of prestigious magazines that you see on the bottom of this slide here. And we're pretty proud of that because we don't know anybody else in our space that has been talked about on all these prestigious publications and is A-rated and has physical locations in every one of the United States. Today we're focused on what we're doing for real estate agents, and we've been focused on this space for about a year and a half, and a lot of us come out of the real estate industry. I still carry an active real estate license here in Florida, so we understand some of the things that you go through as a real estate agent, and we've lived it and breathed it ourselves, so we're very familiar and we know our way around the real estate industry. With regard to knowing the real estate industry, we know this, that as an independent agent or broker, whether you're full-time or part-time, you're running your own business. You are the boss. The independent agents on this call, I'm sure you hear it from your broker all the time. He or she tells you, look, you need to start thinking of this as a business. So you got into this business because of the autonomy or the freedom that it provided, and also the ability to have high potential earnings in this industry. So, what we're going to talk about today is ways that we're going to help you protect your interests as well as hold on to as much of the money as you earn in this business by thinking of incorporating. Speaking of incorporating, when we used to do these presentations, we started them off by questioning the crowd and saying, what are words that come to mind when you think of businesses or companies or entities that are incorporated or LLCs? And we got some of those adjectives on top: big, strong, full-time, trustworthy. And then we asked the same question of what they thought of individuals that were not incorporated. And you can see the words. We got words like startup, fly-by-night, part-time, skeptical. So referring back to the previous slide, it's your business. You are the boss. So you get the decision to make how your customers view you. Okay, let's talk about what does incorporating or forming an LLC mean. Simple. It's designed to be a separate, that's bolded on this screen for a reason, designed to be a separate legal entity having its own privileges and liabilities distinct of the owners. A corporation or LLC has the legal capacity to enter into agreements or contracts, to incur or pay debts, to sue or, unfortunately, be sued, and again, key factor here, this last bullet, to be held responsible for its actions separate from the owner. So separate being the key concept on this particular screen here. So those are the things that being incorporated can do for you. What we see, we go around the state making these presentations live. We're doing this one online to make it easy for you to come hear our message. But we do this live in brokerage offices all around Florida, all around the country. And what we see is we see realtors running their business without being incorporated, without forming a PA or an LLC. So they're owning their own business, they're running it alone, and they have no separation between themselves and their business. So basically, when we talk about legal protection, when we operate this way, we don't have any. And the reason we don't have any is that our personal and business assets are combined. They're all under one silo. So that's a sole proprietor. We also see general partnerships. So this could be two guys. One has a truck and one has a lawnmower. The guy with the truck is a good salesman. The guy with the lawnmower is very good on knowing how to make properties look great after he mows them and edges them and fixes them up nicely. Well, they may get together and decide to go in the landscape business, but not with a formal entity around them. And, this is even worse because now not only do you have your personal and business affairs under one umbrella, but you also have your partner's business affairs under another umbrella, under the same umbrella. Now this can open you up to other heartaches as well. One of my associates here at the company corporation, he did an engagement for a couple of gentlemen a couple of years ago, and he helped them put their business and sales plan together. And he got paid for that, and then part of his compensation was he received 2% equity in that company. And he never really counted on it throwing off a lot of income to him, so he kind of forgot about his 2% equity stake until 3 years later, when those folks got sued in a Texas court of law. And they lost the judgment for $15,000. And my associate, only being a 2% owner in that company, ended up having to pay the entire $15,000 judgment. And the reason for it was the other two owners didn't have any assets. This gentleman did, so he ended up having to pay 100% of the judgment, even though he was a 2% owner. And that went down that way because there was no corporate structure, there was no legal separation between themselves and their personal assets. So he got stuck for the whole thing. So, what we're going to talk about today is obviously how we make sure things like this don't happen. So in this country, you have two options when you set out to create a legal entity. The first type of entity that you have access to is a corporation, or here in Florida, a professional corporation, or what we call a PA, professional association. The other opportunity that we have is a limited liability company. Corporations can be either a C corporation, and these are typically large entities like you see on the screen here, like Chevron and Burger King. Their owners have the legal separation, but the companies have something we call double taxation, which means the organization is taxed on their income when they earn the money, and then they're taxed again when they pay dividends to their shareholders. So the federal government, we understand that small business is the backbone of the country and the backbone of our economy. So the federal government needed a way to make it easier for small businesses to start up. So they introduced something called a Subchapter S corporation. A Subchapter S corporation operates in a similar manner to a C corporation where the owners have limited liability, so they have that protection, that separation that we talked about on the previous screen. But they get a tremendous benefit. They get something called flow-through tax treatment. And what this means is that the corporation, the S corporation, does not pay corporate taxes. You do your corporate filing, you make all of your deductions, and at the end of it, you're going to come out with either a profit or a loss, and that number rolls over to your personal tax return where you typically pay at a lower rate. So the corporation itself does not pay any taxes. It flows through to your personal return. So that's a huge savings there, and I've got a screen coming up that's going to kind of give you some examples of how we would quantify that. An LLC is a little bit newer of an entity, so it's a hybrid between a sole proprietorship and a partnership and a corporation, where the owners have limited liability and they also get the flow-through tax treatment, just like an S corp. So let's talk about the difference between a PA and an LLC. I know I've thrown a few things at you, but hopefully this slide helps clear it up. Functionally, they're both the same. They both allow you to create a separate legal entity from the owners. They both give the owners limited liability. They both provide the pass-through tax treatment. The only real difference is that a PA needs to have a yearly board meeting and keep corporate minutes. Now, I've got my own corporation, and I have to do annual board meetings and keep corporate minutes, but there's no law that says I need to do them here in Coral Springs, Florida, where I live. I held my last two board meetings. I held one in Costa Rica and one in Las Vegas. And I will tell you that the one in Costa Rica was a lot more fun because it didn't cost me nearly as much money as the one in Vegas. But in all honesty, there is no law that says you can't have your annual board meeting out of town or out of the country, and then it's for a legitimate purpose, so that whole trip ends up being tax deductible. Because I think a little bit better to plan my next year in business when I'm down in the rainforest of Costa Rica and my cell phone doesn't ring, and after about 2 days of being edgy, I start to let go and I see that my brain frees up and I get better ideas and things come to me. So it really does help me plan my business. So it also gives me a tremendous advantage in being able to write off a trip to a place that I love going anyway. So again, that's the main functional difference between a PA and an LLC. In Florida, the Division of Business and Professional Regulation and the state Secretary of State says realtors can be either a PA or an LLC. And we're the only state in the country that allows you to put your real estate license directly into a corporate entity. No other state allows this. So Florida is a great state for realtors to be able to protect their personal assets. And it's also got some of the lowest filing fees as well. So because of that, what are we seeing as the trends in Florida? Well, we are seeing that most real estate agents in Florida choose the PA, the Professional Association, which is a form of an S Corp. FREC or DBPR allows you to change your individual real estate license into your PA, which puts you on par with doctors and lawyers. Now, there's only 5 groups of professionals in Florida that can have the PA designation after their name, and they are doctors, lawyers, accountants, architects, and realtors. So, probably one of the reasons we're seeing almost 100% of realtors that decide to incorporate in Florida do it as a PA. The filing fees are a little bit less than an LLC, and you get to put that PA after your name, which puts you in the exclusive group. Okay, now let's talk about the benefits of forming a PA. Well, the benefits are many, but we're going to focus on the top 4 here. Personal asset protection, tax flexibility and savings, additional credibility, and less risk of an audit. So everybody knows we live in a very litigious society, and we can get sued for legitimate or non-legitimate reasons regardless of guilt. Now, if you do a Google search and you look up what is the most popular state for frivolous lawsuits, chances are you'll see Florida. If you Google what is the most popular state for fraudulent lawsuits, you'll probably see Florida in the top 2 or 3. What is the most popular state for egregious award lawsuits? You'll probably see Florida pop up in the top 2 or 3. So it's a litigious society, so operating under a corporate entity helps to protect your personal assets. Both PAs and LLCs allow owners to separate and protect personal assets. If you have us do your filing, which I'm going to make you a pretty good offer at the end of this, that you probably want us to do it, we're going to give you a $50,000 corporate veil guarantee. And what a corporate veil is, it's this device that keeps the separation between your personal life and assets and your business life and assets completely separate. So, in the event that anything ever did happen where you got sued and found personally liable, like in other words, if your corporate veil was pierced, might be a phrase you hear on watching some of these TV shows, the company corporation and our parent will step up and provide up to $50,000 in legal defense fees if that ever happens. So that's a guarantee that you really can't get from any attorney who might offer to incorporate you or anybody down the street. It's exclusive to the company corporation. This screen is everybody's favorite because we're going to talk about dollars and cents and how forming a PA can save you hard dollars. We're going to show you 2 examples. This is a simplified tax example. So we're not talking about your car allowance, your marketing expenses, your monthly fees to your broker or whatever it is, because those are probably going to be the same in both columns. We arbitrarily chose an income of $60,000. So if you make less or more than this, you can extrapolate the numbers and figure out what the potential savings would be for you. In the first column, we're going to show you what most of you are doing today and what the tax implications of that are. In the second column, we're going to show you that if you did incorporate and formed a PA, some of the ways you'd be able to drive your tax liability down. So in this example, if you earned $60,000, and this is net to you after broker splits and all that fun stuff, there is what we call a self-employment tax that has to be paid. And this is before you get into your 28% tax bracket or what have you. You are now self-employed, so you have to pay 2.9% Medicare and 12.4% Social Security or FICA. So that's a total of 15.3%. Now, many of us might have still be working jobs, may have had jobs where we got a W-2 at the end of the year, and you may recall you only paid a total of 7.15%. And that's correct, and that's because you paid half of this number as an employee, and your employer paid half of this number as an employer. So you both contributed 7.15%. But now you are both. You are the employee and the employer. So you have to step up and choke down the entire 15.3%. So in this case, $9,180 comes right off the top. Now, the next thing we have to look at is what state are you in and what's your tax bracket? Well, this presentation is exclusive for Florida agents, and we're very lucky here in Florida that there is no state income tax. So we assumed that we were in a 28% tax bracket based on that 60,000, and we just assumed we're filing a married joint return. So our tax obligation there would be $10,835 for a total tax bite of $20,015. So now let's look at how this number might change if we actually spent the only $59 I'm going to ask you for later to incorporate. So what does a $59 investment in your business potentially save you? Well, the IRS says companies can pay themselves in two ways. Owners of companies. An owner can pay him or herself in the form of a salary, or they can take distributions. So in this case, again, we just arbitrarily chose $40,000 in salary and $20,000 in distributions. Now the key here is when I show you what the self-employment tax obligation is, you'll notice it goes down quite a bit. It goes down by over $3,000. And the reason why it went down by so much is because we don't have to pay the self-employment tax on whatever amount we take as a distribution. So in this case, we're only paying the self-employment tax, that 15.3%, on the $40,000 that we took as a salary. We don't pay it on the $20,000. Now, from a state and federal standpoint, everything there stays the same, but you'll see now instead of owing $20,000 and change, we owe just under $17,000 and change for a tax savings just by spending $59 to start up a PA. Everything else being the same, it's a $3,000 savings. So that might be your net on a $150,000 listing after you list it, sell it, do open houses, do all the contracts, do all the showings, put the lockbox on it, and everything that goes along with trying to get a listing and actually close it. You might walk away with $3,000 when it's all said and done. A lot easier to file a piece of paper and do a tax return to get that $3,000. So now we, as the company corporation, we're an old-time, very conservative company, so we showed you this very conservative example. This is completely up to you and your accountant how much you take in salary and how much you take in distribution. The IRS does not say how much you need to pay yourself as a salary. They only say it has to be reasonable. So what if you and your accountant decided you weren't going to take $40,000 in salary and $20,000 in distribution? What if you took only $30,000 in salary and $30,000 as a distribution? If you look at the bottom of the screen now, your savings went up from $3,000 to $4,500. What if you had an accountant that was a little bit more aggressive and he or she decided to flip the numbers and take only $20,000 in salary and $40,000 in distribution? Everything else is the same. It's just a matter of how you allocate your money now. You see there's a potential $6,000 in savings. So all of this, we're not accountants. We cannot offer legal or financial advice. We're just representing a couple of scenarios that you might want to talk to your tax advisor about, because depending upon how you decide to allocate income, there could be substantial savings just by spending the $59 plus state fees with us today to get this done. Now, on that last screen, people see the word distribution and salary and they get all worried. Doesn't matter. Every dollar you earn as commission is fully available to you as soon as it comes in. All you do is you just allocate some dollars as salary and some as distribution when you do your taxes. And this is something you do with your tax advisor. The main point of that last slide, though, is that whatever you take in distributions, they're exempt from the self-employment tax. So whatever you decide to take as a distribution, you don't pay 15.3% on it. So I was at an office in Key Biscayne last week, and they were saying, if they made $100,000 and they took $75,000 as a distribution, they would save over $11,000, I think $450 in taxes. And then they reverse engineered that number and they said, my goodness, that's like going out and getting a free $382,000 listing and selling it and putting the money right in your pocket without having to do any of the work. So that's kind of the power of this, to form this corporation, to protect yourself and get that kind of massive tax savings for $59 plus the $70 we send to the state is kind of a no-brainer. With regard to salary, the IRS says you must pay yourself a reasonable salary, and you need to talk to your tax advisor about what percentage of salary versus distribution after you set up your PA or your LLC. Okay, those are two of the benefits we talked about: personal asset protection and tax flexibility. What else do we have? Well, we've got additional credibility. Did you know that when people see letters after your name, they automatically think that you're smarter and better educated? So we say that, putting a PA after your name, it does a lot of things for you. It's going to give people that perception that you're smarter, better educated, but really you take your business more professionally than the next agent. So if you're going up for a listing and you're a PA and the next agent isn't, maybe it sets you apart, that you really take your business seriously. I had the pleasure of sitting in on a luxury designation class that we sponsored here in Fort Lauderdale a couple of weeks ago. And they talked about the profile and the mindset of a luxury seller and a luxury buyer. Don't you think they're all pretty astute from a business standpoint? Don't you think they're all pretty savvy from a financial standpoint? Don't you think they'd enjoy working with someone who takes their business serious enough to and understands the reasons why they would want to incorporate? So helps you stand out, helps you differentiate yourself. Now, once you decide to do this, obviously you want to go back and you want to put that PA designation on all of your marketing materials. The last benefit we're going to talk about today is reducing your risk of an IRS audit. The Wall Street Journal did an article about a year ago that IRS statistics indicate that you are 10 times more likely to be audited as a sole proprietor filing a Schedule C than an S Corp or a PA. And we were like, why is this? So they interviewed ex-IRS agents, tax attorneys, and CPAs. And they said there were a couple of reasons for this. Number one, it's just flat out more expensive for the IRS to audit a business. Because when they audit a business, they have to use a CPA. When they audit a sole proprietor or an individual, they can use any staff accountant. So business requires a PA to do an audit. And they also looked and they said, if you've got a real estate agent who's absolutely tearing it up in their market and earning $250,000, $500,000, that's a lot of money. But to the IRS, that's the smallest of the small businesses, right? So even if they looked at that company and did an audit on that, they're not going to receive a lot of additional taxes owed and fines and penalties. So what they'd rather do is they'd rather set their sights on companies like Microsoft, who get audited every year, and the sole proprietors filing a Schedule C. So, you work hard to make yourself a professional and get your license and do your continuing education credit every year and your code of ethics every 4 years. But by filing your taxes as a sole proprietor with a Schedule C, you go in the same pile of IRS tax returns as the guy who sells T-shirts out of the back of his car at a Miami Dolphins game in the fall. And the IRS looks at that pile and knows historically it's got the highest amount of illegal deductions and usually errors on it. So they tend to look at that pile with a much closer eye. So our recommendation is, get your return in the good pile, the small time corporation, and significantly reduce your chance of an audit. So here's the 4 benefits that we talked about: asset protection, tax savings, additional credibility, and reducing your risk of an audit. That's all well and good, but who cares about that? Well, we know your attorney cares about the asset protection stuff. We know your accountant cares about the tax savings and reducing your risk of an audit and the financial stuff. But really, remember in the beginning, we talked about how it's your business. So you should probably care about all of these things. All of these things are important to you. I mean, honestly, if you look at this screen, does your attorney care if you have additional credibility? Probably not, but you do, and these are the advantages that you can enjoy. The next growing part of our business is providing formation services for real estate investors to protect their investments. A lot of real estate investors form LLCs to hold and manage their properties to help protect their other assets from liabilities or lawsuits that might result from the activities of one property. So you know the drill, right? Somebody slips and falls at a property, cracks their head on the pavement, and then they get up and they look at one of the 100 billboards that are up and down I-95, and they call that lawyer on the billboard who says, "Injured? I can get you money." And they decide to sue everybody in town. But in that case, who's the first person they're going to sue? Well, it's probably the property owner. So what we've seen is savvy property owners putting their properties in an LLC to give themselves better protection and keep everything isolated. So they'd rather, we know somebody who has 27 different properties, and he said, "I formed an LLC around each of my properties because if anything goes bad at one property, I'd only rather lose 1/27th of my holdings than all of them." So what these savvy investors do is they typically just name the property, comma, LLC, like 123 Main Street, comma, LLC. If you want to do this, that's fine, but we're not saying it's going to be easy to go out and buy properties in the name of an LLC and get financing for them. This is probably for properties you already own. You want to put them in the LLC to protect yourself, but in terms of financing, you want to check with your lender. The 50,000 corporate veil we talked about earlier applies to any contracts you sign in the name of your LLC regarding the property. And just a point here, in the beginning, I talked about us being in all 50 states. We can do any type of business, any entity in any state. I just had a friend of a friend call me, and he's getting into the beer brewing business. So he formed an LLC so his brewer can pay him once the checks start rolling in. So he called me up. I took his application over the phone in 5 minutes. I put it into our system, went right to the Secretary of State, and within a couple of days he had his formation documents and his EIN number, and now he's all legitimate with his brewer so he can start taking money in. So in the beginning, I told you we were founded by attorneys, but we are not attorneys. But every day in the mainstream press, you can see what attorneys are saying. Money Magazine, which most of you probably know about, did a section called Ask the Expert back in October, a few months ago. And they had an expert catch a hill up in Richmond, Virginia. And the question was posed to her by a woman that said, "My husband and I own 3 investment properties. Should we incorporate?" And she said, yeah, the main reason to set up an entity like a corporation is to protect your personal assets against a lawsuit. So if someone gets injured on your property, she says instead of incorporating, though, set up LLCs or several LLCs to hold your properties. Okay, let's talk about, if you want to go ahead and do this, how you actually do it. So I've popped something up on the screen now where you can download this form. So all you need to do is either go to the website that we're popping up here and you can download this form anytime, or you can go grab it now, or you can just watch me go through this, download it when we're done, and you can call me when we're done here and I'll walk you through the rest of it. It's about as easy as you can imagine. But first, I want to share a couple things with you. We ask realtors all the time, well, now that you understand this, surely you knew some of this, how come you haven't incorporated yet? And we get 2 basic answers. The first one is, well, we thought it was expensive. Attorneys typically charge between $300 and $600. I've got a personal friend who's an attorney in Fort Myers, Florida, and he charges $595, pretty much 10 times what we're going to charge you here today. And he will gladly do your incorporation for $595. So, yeah, I understand that's a lot of money to pay. Well, we've taken that out of it. It's just $59 with the discount we're going to give you today. The other reason why realtors tell us that they haven't incorporated is they think it's very complex. They think it requires multiple months of bank statements, multiple tax returns. Well, the answer to that is no. We've made it ultra simple. It's just this 1-page form here and the $59 plus the state fees, and we can get your process started today. So let's walk through this. So the first thing we need to know is, what is your business name? And in Florida, the Division of Business and Professional Regulation makes it very easy for us. In Florida, your business name has to be exactly what is on your Florida license. So whatever your name is on your Florida license, you would put it in there, comma, PA. If you have a very common name, you might have to put in your full middle name or take out your middle name and just use your initial, or you can just write the word call there. And if there's a problem, and when we do the electronic search, we have an issue, we will call and get it sorted out. Step 2 on the form is, where do you want to form your PA or your LLC or your PA? And for almost all of us on this call, that's going to be in the state of Florida. What type of company? So almost 100% of realtors in Florida choose the PA. Why? The state filing fees are only $70 instead of $125 for an LLC. And don't forget, you get in that exclusive club of a PA, which only doctors, attorneys, accountants, and architects are in. So almost everybody chooses a PA. Step 4 on the application is, what is the purpose of your company? if you're a real estate agent in Florida and you're going to take commissions into this entity, which that's the whole reason why we're doing this, you need to write here real estate services. So if you haven't downloaded this form, just put number 4, purpose, real estate services. If you're following along here and you're an investor and you're putting your property in an LLC, you would write here all business that is lawful. So again, number 4 is going to be for realtors, real estate services. For any other type of business, all business that is lawful. Section 5 is for LLCs only. So if you're doing a PA, you're going to skip to section 6. But just in case we have anybody on the call that's doing an LLC, most people who form these companies check the top box on both A and B. Who will run your LLC? Well, one or more of the owners of the LLC will run it. So if you are a realtor and you're forming an LLC for whatever reason, chances are slim you're going to go out and hire a manager. So it's likely you are going to run this as the owner. So the top box there. And how long do you plan to keep your LLC in business? Almost 100% choose the top box. I plan to keep my LLC business indefinitely or in perpetuity. That bottom box is typically used by real estate developers or home builders or house flippers or even contractors. So a builder knows he's going to finish a subdivision in 5 years and he's going to be out of there. So he's going to close that LLC down. A contractor just won a contract to build a bridge. He knows in 5 or 7 years that contract's going to be done. So he's going to pre-plan to close that LLC down at some future point. It's just another way to add another level of protection to everything. All right, so most of us are doing PAs. So here, most realtors choose the top boxes on question A and question B. This deals with the amount of shares and the par value of those shares. So in Florida, the state will issue you up to 1,500 shares without triggering any additional taxes. So most realtors say, yes, please authorize my corporation to issue the maximum shares without causing additional taxes. And then on question B, they also choose, yes, please give my corporation share a par value of 0. Now remember, this is just a corporate entity to protect you and give you tax benefits as you receive commission income in. This is not a company you're going to sell shares in a public offering, so you want these numbers to be as low as possible because you don't want to trigger any additional taxes on startup. Section 7 of the form. Very simple. You just put in your name. Please write as legibly as possible here. Your name, your physical address, no P.O. boxes. So we need a physical street address here, a phone number, and an email address. And then you just want to check that box on the bottom that says owner. So DBPR allows only you as a sole owner of your PA if you're receiving commissions. So I get this question a lot when I go out in the field. We have husband and wife teams that work together and they file a joint return. They want to know if both of them can be owners of a PA. The answer is no. The Florida Real Estate Commission and the Division of Business and Professional Regulation are very specific. Each individual realtor who wants to receive commissions into a PA can be the only person in that PA, and they have to be the sole owner of that PA, and that PA name has to be the same name that's on their Florida real estate license. So a little restrictive in that regard, but again, Florida is the only state in the country that even allows you to put your license in a PA, so not too much to sacrifice. All right, let's talk about the dollars. I kind of gave it away earlier, but there's a lot that we do. So first thing we do is we take your order form and we put it into our portal that sends it right to the Secretary of State. The Secretary of State does the company name search. If there's a problem, we call you. But usually we submit it without a problem. We electronically file it to the Secretary of State. Once the articles of formation are completed, they come to us, we forward it to you. along with access to our online compliance watch service. Again, you do get the $50,000 corporate veil guarantee for contracts signed under the entity. By the way, make sure when you take a listing agreement, it's your name, comma, PA. When you sign a sale and purchase agreement, sign it as your name, comma, PA. So now it's no longer you personally executing these agreements, it's your corporation executing these agreements. So that's where your personal protection comes in. So make sure you remember to do that. We give you some free business cards, and then we're going to send you links to the IRS forms for your employer identification number and to make sure you get that pass-through tax treatment. And then we become your registered agent for 6 months. Your registered agent is an address where your company, if anybody has to sue or serve your company legal papers, where legal process can be served, we act as that for free for 6 months. And if you want to continue that with us, you can. You don't have to. It expires after 6 months. But that can be a benefit sometimes, because if anybody ever did decide to sue, they would look, and number one, they would see you're incorporated. So now you're a little bit less of a target. And then number two, they would see that your registered agent is a business and they're located in Tallahassee, Florida. So they'd have to drive to Tallahassee to serve you. So usually they're not interested in that. So usually they go away. So pretty good benefit in having us do that for you. Okay, here's the numbers. To form a PA in Florida, first of all, our service fee is the same, regardless of what company, what type of entity, and what type of state. We charge $99 regardless, so that's easy. If you're forming a PA, the state filing fees in Florida for a PA are $70. That's a subtotal of $169. I mentioned to you I would give you a $40 discount for attending today. So that's an all-in total of $129. So $59 to us for doing everything and babysitting the process, and then $70 to the state, so $129. If you're doing a PA, it's the same $59 to us, but I'm sorry, an LLC is $125 to the state, so that comes out to a total of $184 after we subtract that discount. So whether you're doing a PA and you're all in, one-time cost today is $129, or you're doing an LLC, your all-in cost is $184. That's one time, pay it now, and you're done for all of 2014. In 2015, you're going to get a notice from the state stating that you need to file your annual report. And what that is, that's just a roll call from the Secretary of State, wanting to know if you're still in business, if you're still the owner, if you're still at the same address, and then you pay your $150 for a PA or $137.50 for an LLC, and you're off to the races, and you get to do business in the state of Florida for another year. So those are your only fees: $129 up front, $150 a year ongoing, and then you do need to do a tax return for this entity, and that's it. And then you get all of the benefits that we talked about through this presentation. So now let's talk about a couple things that are going to happen after you file with us. Well, we do all the filing, we submit it, and then we get your articles of formation. We send those to you. Then we've got to help you get your EIN number. You can do that online for free. I'll send you to irs.gov and show you how to do it. Take you all of about 3 seconds. Or you can pay us $80 to do it. Don't think you would want to do that. It's so simple to do by yourself. But if you want us to, that's what we're here for. Then you've got to update your license with the state. So remember, you're no longer you. You are now you, comma, PA. So DBPR or FREC, they have a form. It's Form 16. It's $30. So you got to pay that $30 and update your license with the state. Then the most important thing on here is you need to file Form 2553 to elect to be an S corporation for tax purposes. Without this, the IRS will consider you a C corporation and you will get hit with double taxation. So this is really important stuff here, Form 2553. I will stay on you about this. Once you order with me, you'll be getting emails from me reminding you of all of this. The last two things you need to do is go open up a business bank account. And in some markets, some banks are offering incentives. Open a business checking account, and they'll give you $150 or $200. Some of these kind of went away here in South Florida. Bank of America had one and Chase had one. I'm looking for them right now, but shop it around because many times you'll get a bank that will pay you for opening a business checking account that more than pays for all your filing fees here. And then the last thing you want to do is you want to update your W-9 with your broker. You want to ask your broker to start paying you in the name of your PA, so all that money comes into your PA so you can pay yourself via distribution as well as salary. And if you decide to send in your form, I will email you all these steps so you don't have to worry about it. So that's all we had for today. So I thank you for attending. I'm going to leave it up on this screen. So go ahead and fill out that form. You can email it to me at steve.dahlia@incorporate.com, or on the order form itself, there's a fax number. Just go ahead and fax it to that e-fax, and our national sales manager will notify me that it came in, and then I will handle your account personally. So thank you one and all for your attention today. We ran a little bit over, so I appreciate you hanging in there. Call me anytime. Phone number is 954-415-4515, or email me with my the email address that you saw on the screen. Thank you again. I appreciate your attendance. Bye-bye.